Okay, I see people are still joining this webinar, but it's top of the hour, so might as well let's start it. The reason you registered, I'm just going to assume actually, the reason you registered for this webinar is because of one of three possible motives. One, you heard this has been presented at SOLIDWORKS World, or actually at 3D Experience World. And you missed the presentation, either because you didn't attend or because you didn't have a chance to get in the room. Second, you might be curious to see how training can be delivered using the online tools. I mean, we all know about webinars. It's a one-way delivery. But what about interactions between the students and the instructors? And the third reason I imagine you might be here is because you want to learn something new. And just going through the list of names here, I can tell you I am a little bit humble seeing how many power users are joining us. I'm not going to mention any names, but I met quite a few of you, or if I didn't meet them before, if I haven't met them before, I read your posts, I read your blogs, I watch your videos. I can't believe my eyes seeing the list of names that is in front of me. So without further ado, let's get the show on the road. I'm being joined here by my esteemed colleague Jamie Hill. I'm going to tell you more about how amazing Jamie is in one of the next couple of slides. And it's true for those of you who came here to see a SOLIDWORKS World presentation. This has been delivered as a hands-on, so it was still a class-like environment at, in Nashville this year. It wasn't, I think it was called 3D Experience World, but you know, we are hardcore SOLIDWORKS fans. So this is the first lesson of our, I'm going to say the second most popular course. Everybody comes for the essentials, but we have a lot of people who are deciding to skip the essentials course and come to our SOLIDWORKS Advanced Update. So this is lesson number 1. And if you go to our website, by the way, this QR code is going to take you there. You're going to see this course is about the core functionality of the product. We're not going to talk about piping or PDM or all the other great things that you can do in SOLIDWORKS. It's just those things that you do, that you use day after day after day. And you probably are believing that you are pretty good at using those. That is why we get a lot of power users in this course. So people who have been using the software for 10 years, even 20 years. Either they are self-taught or they might have gotten training a few years ago and they got really good. They know how to get the job done. So they found a workflow that works for them. But like any power user, and I'm pretty sure you are one of those power users, you always wonder, can I be even faster, even better, more efficient? And they hear about this course and they come and attend this course. Just a disclaimer, this is not really a replacement for the SOLIDWORKS Essentials. And I can tell my own story when I attended SOLIDWORKS Essentials. By that time, I thought about myself as being one of the best CAD users in the world. I had so much experience with CAD in general and a couple of years with SOLIDWORKS that when my manager sent me for training, he asked me, well, we have an unlimited budget. It was a governmental program. What do you want to start with? I said, okay, let's go to Essentials, thinking that I'm going to get 4-day vacation. Well, guess what? After the first hour of the Essential course, I had 2 pages of notes with things I didn't know about. So don't skip Essentials if you have a chance. But right now, we're talking about SOLIDWORKS Advanced Update. So this is a webinar format. In our SOLIDWORKS courses, in our what we call JOLT, Javelin Online Live Training courses, we have very few people in the class. We want to keep an appropriate ratio between the instructors and the students so we can have interactions, we can provide one-on-one time to everybody. Here we have over 100 people who are attending this webinar. So unfortunately, we're going to mute you. You can still ask questions using the Q&A area or via chat, and we're going to try to to answer those questions. So because I cannot ask you to introduce yourself, I'm going to ask you only one question, since we might have managers, we might have all kind of users or people in the class. Who here is paid to use SolidWorks? So if you don't mind, just click on the raise your hand if you believe are paid to use SolidWorks. Okay. Wow, that number keeps going up. So I see 29, 30, 31, 32. Okay, that's enough. So 32 of you are being paid to use SolidWorks. I guess the other 60% actually figured out this is a trick question, right? Because, oh, and I forgot to tell you where the raise hand is, but looks like you figure it out yourself. So by the way, these are the 3 main ways to get in touch with us. I said that was a trick question, or more like a rhetorical question, because really nobody pays you to use the software. Nobody pays you to move the mouse on the screen. What you are being paid is to use it as a tool to produce something, to design something, to model something. So let's change a little bit our mindset from how busy we are moving the mouse on the screen with what we are actually producing. And I'm telling you why I'm saying that. Jamie and I had a discussion a few weeks ago. Both of us are doing a lot of audits to companies who want to become faster. We go there and we spend the full day with the engineering team, one-on-one with each and every one of them. And we observe how they work. They tell us everything that they feel can be improved or SolidWorks should do better. And we put our minds together, them and us, and come with better ways to do it. One thing we notice all the times is the power users in those companies seem to be very busy. Their mouse, it's all over the place, and the left hand is clicking all the times on the keyboard. But many times when I observe them working, I see a lot of activity. So if their manager walks behind them, they see them being very busy, but very little output. So I don't really see a progress. It takes an hour to do something that, if they would be trained on how to use that specific tool, should take 5 minutes. And this is actually the purpose of this first lesson. I want you to have a little change of a mindset. SolidWorks is just a tool. And because we're talking about the interface, let's talk about the interactions between you and SolidWorks. Where does the tire hit the road, right? The rubber hit the road. Well, through your mouse and through your keyboard. You might have some other ways to input information in SolidWorks, right? There is one problem with the mouse. When the mouse moves on the screen, your eyes are actually following the mouse. And that doesn't look like I rediscovered America or anything, but it has a huge implication on your state of mind. So when you try to be on the flow, trying to focus on the design itself, your eyes are following the mouse, trying to hunt for the next step, the next icon, and you get distracted. And depending on how long the interruption is, you're going to find out that you're going to have trouble focusing and trouble moving to the next step. Now, we're not talking only about saving half a second here and there, but also we're looking at two things: staying in the flow, and second, getting this micro saving of maybe half a second, 1 second here and there for things that are repeated over and over and over. So if I save only half a second for an operation that I'm doing it, let's say 3,000 times during the day, I'm going to save almost half an hour, right, of time. And without even talking how well I'm going to feel after that, my mindset is going to be so much better. Now, allow me to introduce you to my colleague, Jamie Hill. Many of you have attended his classes. So Jamie, can you tell us a few things about yourself?
Hi, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Jamie Hill. So I'm a process and training consultant here at Javelin. Basically, I go into companies and do audits. I optimize your CAD systems and the usage for you. I'm also a certified SolidWorks expert and a senior training instructor at Javelin. I have 14 years manufacturing industry experience and 12 using CAD. So,
thank you very much, Jamie. So It's my turn now. I've been using CAD for, I'm even ashamed to say, over 20 years, more than that. One thing that many of you know, I'm very passionate about not only SolidWorks, but about the SolidWorks community. So I'm activating as part of user groups. Whenever somebody asks me to present, I usually say, yes, what do you want to see in SolidWorks? I deliver tons of presentation at SolidWorks World. Also, I'm very proud of being the founder of the SolidWorks Power User Challenges. So for those of you who are already CSWP, so Certified SolidWorks Professional or Certified SolidWorks Experts, guess what? There is another certification you can get that doesn't come from SolidWorks, but from your peers. So if you want to get a certificate signed by Deepak Gupta, that's the best way to go. So I have another slide with a QR code if you want to participate in those challenges. Like Jamie, I'm spending a lot of time providing consulting work and partnering with people like you to find better ways, design new methods, find specific solutions to specific problems. And lately, I specialized in large assembly services, large drawings, and I'm proud to say, and I believe one of you, it's in the audience, partnering with with a customer like that. We were able to add the detailing mode to the SolidWorks drawings in 2020. If you're curious, I can provide you with more information about that. And this is a sample of the SolidWorks Power User Certificate. This is the QR code, and this is the link. If you are curious, just drop me your name in the Q&A, and I can provide you with the links if you want to take this type of challenges to get a certificate. Let's go back to our course. Not before introducing Javelin for those of you who are not Javelin customers. So we are the Canadian VAR. We cover Canada from coast to coast. And this is actually working very well for our subscription customers because it doesn't matter what time of the day they call, can be very early or very late. There is a qualified technician, application engineer to provide instant assistance or very, very fast assistance via tech support. So we're starting the lesson 1, and this is the agenda for it. We're gonna do an out-of-body experience. If any of you has SolidWorks right now in front of you, maybe on a secondary screen, feel free to join us. So in a real training course, the next step, it's very interactive. And then after we're gonna learn how a power user is currently using SolidWorks, we're gonna see if there are any opportunities to do a couple of tweaks to the process he or she is using to maybe double the speed. Okay, so let's move directly to establishing a baseline, individual baseline technique. If you have SolidWorks, please try to model this part. It's a very simple square plate, 1-inch thick. Everything you see here, it's in inches. It has a true all cut, also as a square, 1 inch per side, and 4 holes on the corners. And because we, as I mentioned, being a webinar, we don't have the tools that we usually have in our training software. I'm gonna ask Jamie to get into the mindset of a power user who joined our class and try to model this himself. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and I'm gonna ask Jamie to be the student that will model this. And you're gonna see he's really good as a power user.
Pressure's on. Nobody blink. All right, let's get an inch apart. And we're probably gonna put this down on the top plane. Looks like everything's symmetrical. Put in some dimensions here. And keep that symmetry. 1 inch, good. Let's do the hole maybe. And we'll use the center point here. Okay, that looks good. That's going to be through all. Perfect. And 4 holes. So let's get our hole wizard. So we're just doing a straight hole. It's inch, fractional. Okay, looks like I have everything set through all. We're going to do it on this face here. And might as well convey some design intent here. So let's maybe do a center rectangle. And we'll put in our points. I got an extra one there, didn't I? Let's maybe go delete that. Everything's good. Let's put some dimensions here. 0.5. Okay. Oh, I lost my center, didn't I? Let's grab our midpoint. And our origin. Good, that looks defined. Let's get that, and we'll just throw it into ISO. There we go.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jamie. Let me become the presenter again. And let's take a look at what Jamie did. I'm just curious how many of you might have done the same approach. Has anybody had a chance to actually had the opportunity to see his mouse moving on the screen? There is one problem that we have in SOLIDWORKS, and it's a good problem to have. We are spoiled for choice. There are so many different tools that we can use to get the job done. And usually a user, when he starts using SOLIDWORKS, let's say if they had training, they learn a certain set of tools. Maybe they did that in 97 or 2005 or 2012 or 2015. After that, guess what? They keep using the workflows that they learn at that point, and they might change little by little, but based on my experience working with SOLIDWORKS users, 95% of them are maintaining their current workflow. The result is that you might have a very experienced SOLIDWORKS user, maybe somebody with 20 years experience, who's using SOLIDWORKS 2020 the same way he or she learned in 2000. So could you estimate when you model this part, how much your mouse moved on the screen? And it's not only about covering mileage, but also about how much your eyes were following the mouse, right? Because whenever your eyes are following the mouse and you are no longer focusing on the actual model, guess what? You encounter a micro distraction. And this is what we want to achieve. Not only reducing the mouse travel, kind of getting to the end goal through the walls, also improving the ergonomics, but most importantly is staying in the flow, focusing on the design, not on icon hunting. And what you see here, it's a spaghetti chart of a very good user of SOLIDWORKS. Somebody who, as I mentioned, was trained probably around 2010. Notice they used a lot the command manager, very similar to what Jamie did. And the feature manager was also, or the property manager, both of them were used quite a bit. So that spaghetti chart, it's something that you can obtain using a certain tool. I'm going to mention it at the end. I'm going to give you links if you are curious. And also notice the mouse movement. So it doesn't look like much, but if you're looking at the amount of time that was spent to build a part and you multiply that to how many minutes are in a day that you are actively using SOLIDWORKS, by the end of the day, you probably move that mouse about 2 miles. So when you go home, it's okay to tell your wife, honey, or your husband, honey, I'm so tired. My right hand ran 3 kilometers or more. I cannot do anything. Let me just watch TV, right? So this is a great excuse. Now, this is what I would like to do. This is what I would like to get. And usually this is where our students achieve after 30 minutes of trying. not only reducing the mouse movement, that's a secondary benefit. We are not teaching you to become CAD monkeys to simply do things really fast. But take a look there. Everything is on the model. Your eyes are actually just thinking about design. You're not thinking about the next icon you're going to press. So this is what we're going to try to achieve in the next few minutes. Okay. Just don't even look at these numbers. I don't care if it's faster or shorter. It's about being in the flow. And I took this from one of the presentations that Scott Hamilton from Dell delivered at SolidWorks World. I asked him to allow me to use some of his insight, and he very graciously agreed. In about 1977, IBM started to do a study about the effect of good design for user interface on productivity, or bad design of user interface. And they found out that if you click on the screen or click on a menu or press a key and the interface gives you a response that is delayed, your productivity can be impacted. Under 1/10 of a second, you don't really you don't see the delay. Up to 1 second of a lag, you will notice there is a delay, but your productivity will be minimal. The impact on your productivity will be minimal. Everything past 1 second, your productivity decreases drastically. And the idea that I got from here is it's a good idea to be in the flow instead of stopping. Every stop is killing your productivity. I see that a lot with users of large assemblies, where they have something in mind, they try to make 2 objects, they click on a face, and then they see that thing spinning for 20 seconds. They click on the next face, it's gonna spin for 20 seconds. They click OK, it's gonna spin for 1 minute. And by that time, they forgot what is the next mate they want to create. In this case, it's about what I mentioned with that power user who was apparently very active, but having very little progress on his model. So this is what we're gonna try to build. Stay in the flow, keep your eyes on the model. Okay, now you're gonna say, okay, Aline, you're gonna teach us everything about keyboard shortcuts. Do I need to learn 30 different combination of keys? And the answer is no. There are better methods. You can become even faster using keyboard shortcuts, using mouse gestures. But what I'm gonna share with you is a method that encompasses 5 different principles or 5 different tools. Organically, using them together, you can be in the flow. And then if you want to add other tools and techniques to this workflow, feel free to do that. Principle number 1, always pre-select the entities where you want to apply a tool, because then you get this beautiful context toolbars, which by the way are customizable. So I would click on a face first before creating a sketch or before doing anything. Notice when I say these are context toolbars, their content changes every time you access, depending on what you're trying to do. It's like SolidWorks trying to guess, to read your mind about what you're trying to achieve. So that's step number 1. As I'm going through this, allow me to try to recreate the part that Jamie did. I'm gonna use SolidWorks 2020 for that. By the way, a great improvements in the user interface in 2020. If you haven't had a chance to upgrade, I would strongly recommend upgrading right now. We are at Service Pack 3. So what I mentioned earlier is if you click, so always pre-select the entity you want to apply the command, because the context toolbar is right there. By the way, this toolbar is very, very shy. So if you move your mouse away, it disappears. So just be patient, click, and then you go. I'm in the sketch mode, right? And we're gonna use it quite a lot for other environments, including the assembly. Then take advantage of the shortcut toolbar. So even if you have been using it, I'm pretty sure you're gonna learn something today about the optimal way of using the shortcut toolbar. So where the context toolbar is changing based on the context, the shortcut toolbar changes based on the environment you are in. So notice I have parts, I have assemblies, I have sketches, I have drawings. So I'm going to press the S key. I'm in a sketch mode. Notice how this toolbar follows my mouse. If my mouse is here and I press S, that appears right on the spot. So I'm going to do exactly what Jamie did, but instead of having to travel all the way here to find the command, the action is going to happen just on top of the model. By the way, notice when I drew this rectangle, I drew it a little bit different than he did. What I did, I used the option from midpoints. That would put the center lines starting from midpoint. So I establish symmetry right away. Okay, so that's what we need. Let's apply a relation. I'm going to make these two equal. Another little tip, if you want to apply a relation between two entities that have a common end, you can actually click on the endpoint. And notice the context toolbar for the relations is there. And if you apply equal, it's actually relation apply to the two lines, not to the endpoint. Let me press S again to get my dimension tool. This is going to be 5, and I'm ready to extrude. So I'm going to press S, and I found my extrude command. How much do I want to go? Let's go 1 inch. Jamie said, why don't we use symmetry also in the feature? Notice having to apply the midplane condition, I have to travel all the way here and do a bunch of clicks. Isn't it easier to simply right click on the screen? And there you go, you find all your condition, midplane. Which brought me to the next point. Sorry, actually the next one would be the right mouse button menu. It's context sensitive. So notice in this case, I use the midplane directly from the right mouse, and I don't have to travel all the way to the property manager. So once you make your decision, midplane, notice another thing. My mouse, my cursor has a little mouse next to it, and the right mouse button seems to have the green check mark that is the same one as the one on the upper corner or the one in the property manager. So if I right click right now, I actually terminate the command, which brings me back to item number 3. So 5 principles, use the context toolbars, and I'm going to tell you the best way to customize them. Use the shortcut toolbar. So you press the S key by default, that's the default key to activate it. Pay attention to the mouse feedback. That's because you can finish the current command, but more importantly, as we're going to see if we have time at the end, you can navigate to the next window into a multi-window type of command. Take advantage of the right mouse button menu. This is fantastic. As it's actually what I learned when I attended my essentials long time ago. At that time, they didn't have the option to search for a command. So when I would always ask the instructor, okay, where do I find the button? He would say, why don't you right click, see if you can find the option right there. And most of the times it is there. And the last tool that I would recommend is becoming comfortable with bringing the confirmation corner to your mouse cursor. So let me edit, for example, this feature. And at this point, I would like to either cancel or terminate this. If I press the D key, notice how the OK and cancel are coming from the confirmation corner to my mouse. So let's keep going. I'm going to go here. I'm going to create a sketch. Let's use the same tool that Jamie used, the 3-point center rectangle. Let's select one of this and make it vertical or horizontal. Let's select these two and make them equal. Let's apply a 1 inch dimension, S, cut, how deep, right click through all, right click done. Let's use the hole wizard. Notice how I added the hole wizard to the context toolbar. I'm gonna do it a little bit different than Jamie. I want to take the opportunity to also provide you with a couple of extra tips. So let's go position. I'm gonna put one hole here. One thing I can try to do, allow me to actually go in 2D. One thing that I can do, I can take advantage of symmetry on the origin. So I'm simply gonna draw 2 center lines and take advantage of the context toolbar. So if I select these 2 entities, remember when you drag a box from right to left, you select everything that's crossing the box or it's included in the box. One thing I would like to have here is the mirror command, okay? So let's do that. I'm just gonna get out for a second from the hole wizard. And I'm gonna right click on the context toolbar to customize it. So notice how easy it is to customize it. You have access here to all the toolbars inside SolidWorks. And the one I'm looking for is mirror at the sketch level. Notice here, sketch, and I'm looking for mirror. It's kind of hard to find, right? I kind of know where it is, but otherwise it's very hard to find otherwise. So this is the tip that I'm gonna give you to some of you who already know all about this. You can actually search for commands, right? So I'm gonna look for mirror entities. Notice this is grayed out, but doesn't stop me from dragging it from there and bringing it to the to this command. I believe in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, I saw it at the 3D Experience World. This might become as a search in this space, but this is actually already working. So let's go back to this hole and edit a feature. Okay, positions. So notice now when I select these two, I have the mirror entities right there. I'm selecting these three. I have the mirror entities again. So I already established the relations between them in regards to those two center lines. And that is just a matter of finishing up with a dimension. I say one dimension because I tend to like to add construction geometry if I can, right? So like Jamie did actually in his demonstration, because in this case, I can use only one dimension to fully define my, my part. Let's press D and D again, and we are done. Now, if I were to do this again without having to demonstrate it, I can probably get close to the world record, which is 28 seconds to build this part. And if you're curious, I can provide you with a series of videos where part of one of those power user challenges showing people building this, including one of them with a gentleman who was holding a baby as he modeled this part. So just to summarize, the 5 principles: always pre-select, force your hand to pre-select, then take advantage of the shortcut toolbar. I'll talk to you a little bit about best practices for customizing it. Take advantage of the mouse feedback. Take advantage of the right mouse button menu. Use the D key. So D would allow you to bring the confirmation corner to your mouse. And as a bonus, for those of you who are not hardcore user of the mouse gestures, which are amazing, you found maybe they are too much. You already have shortcuts and things like that. At the very least, set them up in such a way that you can say yes or no. So right now, if I go to customize and mouse gestures, you can have in SolidWorks 2020 anywhere between 12 gestures per wheel, 8 all the way to 2. Now, because I'm an instructor and I'm teaching SolidWorks a lot, if I would use the 12 wheel mouse gesture, I can be so fast on, first of all, I have to learn the wheel, but people would not be able to see what I'm actually doing. While here, OK and escape, it's something I can say, now I'm going to press OK, and they know I'm going to the right, or I press escape. So how does this work? You simply are looking for the OK command, and you drag it over the wheel. And then you look for the cancel, actually, not escape. And again, you drag it over the wheel to the other side. So let's see how that would work. I'm going here, and I'm editing this, this feature, right? So now if I right-click, notice I have the OK, or I have the escape. So right-click, drag to the right or left, and you get this. A couple of tips for practicing, because as power users, we already have habits. It's very hard to change habits. So during my class, after we go through the setup of the interface, right? So we're just going to have to tweak the context toolbar and the shortcut toolbar. Then we actually press F10 and F9 to hide the feature manager and the command manager, and try to build this with minimal use of those things. At one point, you're still going to need the the feature manager, actually more the property manager for the whole wizard. But other than that, if you are serious about this and you try to practice, we found out that after the first morning in class, they actually already adopted some of these techniques that I shared with you. So F9 and F10 are an effective way to help you during practices. Now let's go to the suggestion for customizing the shortcut toolbar, just because many of you are already using this. So you might be wondering, what else can I learn, right? So shortcut toolbar is the one that is being activated by pressing the S key, and those are the main principle. Make the toolbar as square as possible. So I'm going to try to customize it on again from scratch. So I'm going to press the S key and then right click on here to go customize. There are a few other ways to get in there. And notice now in customize you have directly shortcut toolbars. So here I have parts, assemblies, drawings, and sketches. I'm going to focus on customizing the shortcut toolbar for sketching. I'm going to remove some of the icons that I added here myself. And I'm going to try to insert the ones that are usually coming by default. Okay, I probably could have just simply reset my interface. So when you start with SolidWorks, let's say you are inside the sketch, allow me to start a brand new part and create a sketch maybe on the top plane. When you press S, you get something like this. So what do I see here? There are a couple of things that I don't like. First of all, this is the last command is really far away from my mouse. That's why I recommend making it as square as possible, and also moving the most common commands as close as possible to the left corner, top left corner. So your mouse travel becomes really, really small, and your mind can find the command right away. So let's go to customize this. And I'm going to drag it to a more squarish shape. And then I'm going to drop some commands in. Before I do that, I have another major point. By default, when you start with SolidWorks, you're going to get quite a few commands that have these little drop-down arrows, so flyouts. For example, for the line, if you want a center line, you have to do one extra click, which is, I'm going to say it's pretty counterproductive considering how powerful and popular the center line is. And because of that, my recommendation would be to throw away the flyout for the lines and add the individual commands for line and center line. So if you're looking at the toolbars, the way they are set up here, the first one is about flyout toolbar. So here I have multiple commands under one icon, which is pretty good if I want, for example, to add all the bosses. So even though here it shows extrude, if you click on the drop down, you get also revolve and sweep and loft and all the other goodies. Same thing for the cuts, right? But for individual tools, you have to go to the individual toolbars. So for the sketch, I'm going to get the line. I'm going to put it as close as possible to the left corner because it's a popular command. Same thing for the center line. A couple of other commands that I would use would be the point for whole wizard, very powerful. Mirror entities at the sketch level. And if you want, you can add a few others. Lately, I got into the habit of using the segment tool a lot. So that might be another good candidate. Notice the ones that I'm using the most are dimension, are line, center line. Let me move the circle closer and the rectangle, right? So all this are there. Now, a couple of tips that are probably less related to what I'm showing you so far. When you start the rectangle tool, notice that if you pick the wrong option, you don't have to go all the way here to flip it, to change it. You can just press the A key, and A key is going to cycle through all these other options. This is working with most property managers of various tools. So when you press A, it's going to allow you to cycle through these options. Just saying. Okay. So now we have the shortcut toolbar optimized. Okay. So get individual lines for the line and center line, and add icons for things that you use the most. And these are just suggestions, by the way. Usually what I tell power users is analyze what you're doing during the day and you find out that a certain tool is being used more frequently than others, might be worth promoting it either to the context toolbar or the shortcut toolbar, depending on the workflow. Let's talk a little bit about the part mode. So the context toolbar. So I'm going to add a few extra toolbars, right? So not toolbar, sorry, icons in the context toolbar. Popular ones would be the measure, very, very useful. Whole wizard we already did. Let's add something about sheet metal. So in order to do that, I need to have a body present. So let me go back to the previous part. I'm going to click on a face, right click on the screen, customize. So I'm going to look for, looks like I already have flatten. I already have whole wizard. I already have the mirror entities, and I already have plane. So I'm looking for the measure tool. So that's under tools. And if you know where it is, you can find it. Otherwise, use the search commands. Now, one tip, when you drag it in, don't drag it on the last row, because SOLIDWORKS, I think it has a little bug. It's going to place this at the bottom. It's going to create new rows. So it's going to make this longer vertically. You might want to try to drag it. It might work or not, but not as intuitive as simply taking this and dragging it over the top row. Leave it there, and the gravity is going to do the rest. Okay, it's just going to go in the top row right away. So so it's going to work well from that point of view. Okay. Okay, so a couple of things about sheet metal. I know that quite a few of you are using sheet metal. So one cool thing about the context toolbar, even if you put a lot of icons in there, don't be afraid. Not all of them are going to be available. So if you are in sketch mode, you're not going to see flatten. You're not going to see whole wizard. You're just going to see tools that can be used in the sketch mode. Or if you are in the assembly mode, you're not going to see the tools that are being used in the sketch mode or in the part mode. So actually, the name says it all, right? It's a context toolbar. So let's at this point in the class, we have all kind of little exercises that our students perform. Again, because we have a webinar, I'm going to perform some of them myself. So a quick one would be in regards to the sheet metal. Let's open a sheet metal part. And a popular workflow is to flatten your part. You're going to use it a lot, right? The easiest way is to simply click on it. And if you brought the flatten command, it's right there. And notice it's an on-off tool. So how easy it is. Now, if I'm a hardcore sheet metal user, I would probably want to add a couple more commands. Allow me just to close this. So let's customize. And I'm gonna look for edge flange. So I'm gonna drag it, drop it. Let's see if it works in this case. It's like I have a little bit of a problem with the dragging. So maybe, in this case works, okay? Right, so I'm gonna click, for example, on this edge. There you go, that's the edge flange. Let's build one here. And you can see it works pretty nicely. Directly from the context toolbar. And another tip for those of you who have not attended the sheet metal class, if you want to see the formed and the flattened states at the same time simultaneously, you can simply click on any face and use the option toggle flat display, right? So that's gonna enable you to see both the flatten and form shape. So just a couple of tips here and there sprinkle. Really fast exercise. Again, it was about the user interface. Let's talk a little bit about assemblies. So I love breadcrumbs, not because actually I like them even in food, but in SOLIDWORKS, they are fantastic. They eliminate 90% of the reasons for using the feature manager tree, right? So let's open an assembly. I'm gonna open the grill that those of you who might have attended the assembly course might remember. And let's see what can be done here. Notice the feature manager is quite stuffy. And if I want, for example, to open a part, I don't really need to go to the feature manager. I can see the context toolbars that you're familiar with. But what if I want to see the context toolbars of a subassembly using this part? Notice the moment I click on this face, something popped up in this area. And it told me, looks like you selected a face. Now, if you know the story from Hansel and Gretel, they were left in the forest and they tried to find their way back. And they were smart enough to drop some pebbles, and they were able to find it. The second night, they dropped some breadcrumbs, and the birds ate the breadcrumbs, so they couldn't find their way back. In SolidWorks, the breadcrumbs are okay because we don't have birds in SolidWorks. So that's good. At least in 2020, there are no birds that I know of in SolidWorks. So take a look here, there is a face. That's what I clicked on. But this face was created by this feature. So if I want to edit the feature, suppress the feature, change the color of this feature, zoom to the feature, I can do it directly from there. So the context toolbar is about the feature. Now this feature was created by this sketch, right? So notice when I click on the sketch, I'm getting the context toolbar for the sketch. So if I want to edit a sketch right now, guess what? I'm in the sketch editing mode. Now let's press D and get out of there. And maybe press D again to go back to the assembly. And let's go back and see what else this can tell us. So we talked about the feature, we talked about the sketch. We know that this is part of this body. So this feature actually modified this body. This body is part of the part. So now this is, I can see the mates that this part is using in the next subassembly. Also, I can see the major planes of this part. How cool is that? And then I can find the next level subassembly. Why is that important? Well, maybe I simply want to turn this flexible. Or I would like to go and do something, make it independent, run copy with mates, or simply open it, right? So I can see the subassembly directly from the top level without actually going to the feature manager. Now, notice how it came kind of upside down. Doesn't look like the same assembly that I saw in my top level assembly. So let's try to use a different command. So this is the subassembly. And if you use this icon, it's going to open the subassembly in the same position that you have it in the top level, right? Pretty handy, especially when you deal with large assemblies and you're looking at this little part somewhere there. When you open it and it's in a different position, you kind of lose focus. So stay in the flow, try to keep things, try to not lose your sanity, keep things consistent, okay? Then the next level assembly, then the next level assembly, and then the top level assembly. So quite a lot of information that comes from there. Also, as I mentioned, all the right mouse button are there. So for example, if I want to create a speed pack right now, or only for this assembly, I can right click on it, create maybe mated speed pack so we don't lose the mates. How crazy is that? I didn't have to open the assembly. I didn't have to open the subassembly. This is now, let's see if I did it actually. Maybe I didn't do it. Let's use the speed pack. And now this is actually a speed pack. By the way, if you're wondering how I can turn on and off the ghost circle, you press Alt S to cycle between seeing the faces that have been ghosted or actually making them invisible. Okay, so breadcrumbs are fantastic. Use them. Okay. A couple of things about the quick Mates toolbar. It has been improved tremendously in SolidWorks 2020. I know that we're close to this, the end of the webinar, and you have lots of questions probably that you want to ask. But allow me to just show you some of the improvements in the user interface. I'm going to try to put together the universal join that you probably saw it all over the place in all the videos, in all the training courses. Allow me to just show the origin of the main assembly. And I'm going to drag a couple of parts in. So I'm going to drag this bracket over the origin. Then let's insert the next part. So I'm going to try to mate this in position. But imagine this came in our orientation that is not close to the end orientation that I want. So what happened in SolidWorks 2019 and earlier, if you selected these two faces to apply a concentric mate, in this case, SolidWorks is going to give you the closest possible orientation to what you needed. And guess what? This is not what I want. In 2020, I'm getting the flip mate alignment over there. Now, if I don't need to flip the alignment, I simply move my mouse away from there and that goes away. Now, for those of you who are using 2019, imagine that this was mated like this. What do you do to flip it back? Well, thank God for, or actually thank SolidWorks for the breadcrumbs. So I click on this, press the D key to bring the breadcrumbs next to my cursor. By the way, that's another great reason to use the D key. And I can, if I go over the part, I can see the mate and I can right click on the mate, flip the alignment, is right there. One word of caution, if you use SolidWorks 2020, the breadcrumbs can be brought directly to the mouse pointer. So over here, there is the option to show breadcrumbs at mouse pointer. Just be aware there is one limitation if you use that option. So now when I click on something, first of all, it's pretty heavy, right? I'm getting this here. The context toolbar is further than where it used to be. And the other crazy thing is if I go to copy the appearance and I would like to paste it somewhere else, the appearance target doesn't work. So there is a known SPR. They're going to try to fix it. So for the time being, I got in the habit to use the D key to bring the breadcrumbs next to the mouse pointer. So as a user, I have the control over when the breadcrumbs come here. I have to press D in order for that to happen. It's time for 2 more tips. So tip number 1 would be if you try to mate something to a face that is not visible, right? So for example, I go to this face and I go to the mate command, and I would like to peel off this face that is obscuring the face I need. Starting with SolidWorks 2018, I believe, or 17, you can move your mouse over the face that you want to remove and simply press the Alt key. So when every time you press Alt, you actually peel off faces. Notice I'm pressing Alt key and I'm peeling off faces until you have a chance to, until you decide that it's time to left click on a face to apply the mate. Okay, so just a note, Alt key works very well. The other tip I'm going to give you, and by the way, all these tips I'm trying to cram right now are being delivered in other lessons of the large assembly course, advanced update course, right? Which is pretty much a collection of best practices and tips and tricks. So advanced update, it's a collection of best practices and tips and tricks. So in this case, I would like to mate this component over here. Right, so that's this little knob. Notice it's not in the right position. Just be aware that you have an amazing tool at your disposal now. It's called Component Preview Window, which allows you to open that specific component either as a part or as an assembly on its own window. Right. So in this case, I don't have to see both of them. I can focus just on this here and on this there. So what do I want? Well, let's say I would like this to be concentric to this. So I'm going to hold Control, select both of them, take advantage of the quick mate, and you can see the mate has been applied. Now, this kind of, it's in the way now. I hope you guys agree, right? It's kind of hard to select the next face. Well, guess what? Here, I can turn it transparent or wireframe, or I can simply hide it. So the next thing I would say, I want this face, and I want this face to be coincident. And let's get maybe the transparent view to see if the flat here, it's on the right location. Yeah, it looks good. So let me hide this again. I'm going to select that face and this face and apply a parallel relation, exit preview. And guess what? Your part has been mated in there. Now, I'm getting some signs that we are close to the Q&A section. I have much more to tell you. Hopefully we can have a few other webinars coming up. I think, Erin, we have a few more coming. Or you might want to actually stay with us for for the full duration of the training. I want to leave you with two more slides. One, where you can find where you can find tools that would create the spaghetti chart, or they can measure the mouse travel. So this, take a screenshot of this, or just drop your name in the chat and we'll send you the links. And let's see if there are any questions that we haven't answered. So feel free to type your questions in the Q&A area or in the chat. If there is anything else that we missed, maybe anything else that you do different. So far, I see just good feedback. Manish is asking if we recorded this in a video, it will be available after. Erin, what's the answer to that?
Yes, it's available.
Okay. So good question from Andrew Orsini. Do you prefer the pop-up menu options to keyboard shortcuts? So if you're talking about the context toolbar, yes, I prefer the context toolbar, but that's my personal preference as an instructor. First of all, you don't have to remember keyboard shortcuts. You don't have to learn them. You simply click on a face and then you're gonna see a short series of options. And it's very fast. Also, as an instructor, it's something that I can use so the students can understand what I'm doing. If I would use keyboard shortcuts, they would have no idea what I'm doing. So as a power user, you might want to actually invest time to master really crazy keyboard shortcuts if you want to. But if you test the workflow that I presented today, and many of the power users who attended our classes, first of all, they're non-believers. They would say, I can be faster anyway because I have my keyboard shortcuts. And then we have a discussion when we agree that for the next hour, they're gonna attempt to use the technique that we show them, which actually is quite easy because on the laptops that we have for training, they don't have their shortcuts anyway. And guess what? At the end of the 30 minutes or 1 hour, they say, you know what? I'm gonna add some of these techniques to my current workflow. I'm not gonna forget my shortcuts because I already invested 5 years in learning them and mastering them. But I see the advantage of using the context toolbar for anything other that I haven't yet scribed as a shortcut. What commands you hold usually on your mouse gesture shortcut? So in my case, again, I'm just using OK and cancel, just because I'm teaching all the times. And if I would use mouse gesture, people would not be able to understand what I'm doing. Now, that being said, Jamie, if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned that you had to use SOLIDWORKS quite a bit in production, helping customers a few weeks or a few months ago. What type of shortcuts do you prefer to have for the mouse gestures?
Personally, I use the orientations just to quickly view it in standard views.
Okay.
That's actually just the default.
Okay. So what you're saying is that if I go to customize and I go to mouse gesture, let's go to 12, which, by the way, people would say this is very hard to hit. Actually, they are excellent. So easy to hit any quadrant. Yeah, I see the advantage of that. Absolutely. Thank you, Jamie. Now, very good question from Joel Drake. So for those of you, by the way, who want to stay with us for a few more minutes, looks like we're gonna give you a few extra tips. So Joel asked, is it possible to select the planes to mate using breadcrumbs? Selecting, for example, the front plane for both parts. Very good question. And Joel, I hope you don't mind if I give you a tip that is starting from your question, but is moving somewhere else. So let me start again with my assembly. And quickly add a couple of parts, right? So I'm gonna add my bracket. I'm gonna add my yoke male, right? And in this case, I'm simply going to apply a concentric here and a coincident here. Okay. Now, the next one I would like to add is a spider that has to be located exactly in between these two faces, right? And I know you guys are familiar with the width mate, right? So I can select these 4 faces and apply the width. But also because you are power users, you also know that the width mate can slow you down on large assemblies. So you might prefer to use the planes. Now, when I say breadcrumbs, right, I can go here and try to find out the right plane. So that's one plane, hold control, select the other face, but the breadcrumb doesn't come. Maybe it does. For the second phase, can I do it? Let's see if I can do that. Yeah, so you can do it maybe, but it's very convoluted. I'll give you a much better option. So are you ready? This is crazy. In SOLIDWORKS now, we have the ability to show the primary planes. So if nothing is selected and you press this button, it's simply going to turn on the primary planes of the assembly. Now, and you can see you can turn them on and off. If you select things, so I select these 2 components, I can actually reveal their primary planes. And you're gonna tell me, yeah, 1, 2 clicks, are you crazy? I'm not gonna do that. And I agree, I wouldn't do that either. That's why it's time to talk about keyboard shortcuts. So customize and go to keyboard, look for primary. Notice I use P for primary planes, and let's see how this works. I click on these 2 parts, I press P. Their primary planes become available. I select both of them, I apply coincident. Now I select these guys again, I press P, the primary planes are going out. How nice and easy is that? So what do you think, Joel? Probably you can even have the primary planes to appear as a context toolbar. That would be cool if it's possible, I don't know. Primary planes. You know what? I'm going to learn something today from your question. So let's see if that's true. It's like, it doesn't allow me to drop it here. So maybe I need to go to the view menu. Primary planes, there you go. Okay, let's see if this works. So I select these 2. And then I go primary planes. Oh, Joel, thank you very much for your challenge. This is fantastic. I learned something today. This is excellent. Thank you very much. This is great. And then I click on anything else and primary plane off on this one, primary plane. Oh, thank you very much. Excellent job, Joel. Craig, terrific. So how do you decide which keyboard shortcuts are high frequency? Is it based on typical parts you make or based on SOLIDWORKS user industries? So ARAM, I would say, forget about the industry, just think about yourself. As you work, start with no shortcuts and start working. And you're gonna find out in the next 10 minutes, there are 3 tools that you use most of the times. Have them as a shortcut toolbar or as a context toolbar. So context toolbars, I would say, would be my go-to things if it's just about touching things. Now, finding other commands that, so in order to apply this, you need to have the entity created. Notice for the shortcut toolbar in Sketch, I want to draw a line. There is no line yet. So this is when I would use the shortcut toolbar. I hope I answered your question. Suresh, do you have any log to check what are the frequent commands used in SOLIDWORKS? Very good question. It would be nice to have it. I believe if you go to the SOLIDWORKS journal, it's going to give you a list of all the commands that you use in the current session. But that's actually a good question. Joel, I'm glad that you found this useful, the primary planes. And again, thanks again for your challenge. Any other questions? Oh, so these were from the Q&A. I see lots of other questions on the chat. So
I have a very good question from Andrew.
Yep.
His question is, do you prefer the pop-up menu options as opposed to the keyboard shortcut?
So I think I answered the same question for somebody else. In my case, because I'm a trainer, I prefer the pop-ups because the students will see what I'm actually using. But even as a user, I would prefer the pop-ups for commands that are not very frequent. I mean, are frequent, but not as frequent as something that I would put on a keyboard shortcut. So if something, for example, the primary plane, yes, maybe. The whole wizard, I wouldn't probably shortcut it, but makes sense that when I click on a face to be able to drill something just by clicking on that face, right?
Yeah, generally I recommend very frequently used for the in-context pop-up, and then everything else you would possibly use in your job, throw it on the shortcut toolbar.
Yeah, excellent, Jamie, thanks. That's absolutely right. I see also that Raj is asking about the maximum number of icons used in customized toolbox. So Raj, I haven't hit the maximum number. That being said, apply common sense. Don't put all the commands in SolidWorks in the context toolbar, because then you're going to lose the effectiveness, right? It's going to become too cluttered. Gestures are a lifesaver. Okay, so it looks like we have quite a few people who prefer mouse gestures. So Jamie, is there any other question that stands out?
No, I think you've covered them all.
Okay, sounds good. I see questions about feature recognition. So that would be actually a topic for the actual training course. We don't have time to really cover that. That's a huge topic. Other than that, yeah, looks like we answer most of the questions. Oh, what are the most resource consuming action in SolidWorks from Dan Harris? So Dan, the two of us should have a talk then. You're asking this question why? Because you experience slowdowns. So if you do experience slowdowns, just well, we have your question, so Erin can probably get in touch with you. We have to have a chat. So anybody, by the way, who experiences slowdowns in SolidWorks, especially large assemblies like large drawings, you came to the right people. We have a ton of experience just doing this. Actually, since the COVID-19 pandemic started, I'm busier than ever before, because customers who are slow now need to be very efficient. And if they are working with large assemblies, they no longer accept slowdowns. And they come to us because they know we have experience and we can get them running. Anyway, I don't want to move into a salesy type of mode, but we'll try to also answer any other questions you have by email. So I see there. By the way, if you want to take a screenshot of this, we publish every day at least one new tech tip. So all the information that you see here is not about sales related articles. Everything is free knowledge that we share with everybody, not only our subscription users, but everybody in the world. Actually, quite a lot of ours, I was told, would send our pages to their own customers as answers to tech support questions. Perfect. So thank you very much for joining us on behalf of me, Erin, and Jamie, and the whole Javelin Technologies. Hopefully you're going to join us for the next webinars we have. There is a whole list. Erin is going to make it available to you. I believe we have something really cool about large assemblies actually coming up. So thank you. Have a good day. Just a note. I noticed that quite a few of you are still in the webinar, so I just wanted to mention one thing. I see quite a few other questions coming up. We're going to try to answer them. And also the fact that we just scratched the surface of what we give to our users in our classes. So this is, I'm going to say, one maybe point